Good.
All right. Okay. Once you up here. I never get that.
We all need.
Start on this side.
Ready? Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here today and to welcome our U.S. Senator Ashley Moody here to Bay County, along with some of my fellow sheriffs and the Highway Patrol. We've got Captain King, Colonel Howes, Sheriff Smith, Sheriff Tate, Sheriff Cruz, Sheriff Arnold, and Kevin Kirkpatrick with Okaloosa County here to talk about some efforts that the Senator is making in Washington and really making a difference up there. You know, I think back to 2017, it was my second year as sheriff, and I got a call from somebody I didn't know, Ashley Moody, to come visit Bay County, and she was running for Attorney General at the time. And she came and sat down with us on several different occasions, and was not typical from somebody running for office in that just asking for endorsement. She truly sat down with us to see what issues are you facing in Bay County, what can I do to help, what resources you need for law enforcement. We were really able to have a friendship from that and a working relationship. And when she got into office as our Attorney General, she made all of those promises come true. She kept her promises and she backed the blue, and she did so much for law enforcement in this state. And we're just honored to have her as our U.S. Senator now, and honored to welcome her to Bay County. You know, we have talked a lot recently about the immigration issue, and Florida sheriffs and police chiefs and our state partners on our efforts in trying to work with the federal government. It's primarily a federal government responsibility and jurisdiction, but we want to be part of the solution because we've seen the effects that it has had on public safety in our communities. So we've worked hard for that, but we need the help of the federal government, and Senator Moody is here to introduce a program and a bill that we think is going to radically help us in working with the federal government to fight immigration. So with that, I would like to introduce our U.S. Senator, Ashley Moody.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Love coming to Bay County and the Panhandle. It is one of Florida's best kept secrets. I'm trying to keep it that way, but I don't know. I think it's spreading throughout the nation, which is shown by how many people want to move here. I joke in Washington that folks are elbowing their others to get out of the way so that they can get to Florida first. And so thank you very much for having me today. Under the Biden administration, one of the things that concerned me most as someone who had worked closely with law enforcement as a federal prosecutor, as a judge for so many years, was one of the first actions that the administration did was back away from the long-standing efforts to deport those here illegally committing crimes. So within the first month, they announced, going against what Democratic and Republican presidential administrations had done previously, they were going to start telling sheriffs to release people that were in their custody, where normally they would have been deported for committing crimes. Now they wanted those sheriffs to push them back into the communities. And you can imagine, as I got calls from law enforcement around the state, I was horrified. One of the first actions I took as Attorney General against the Biden administration was suing on this policy change because it made no sense. And we knew what drastic consequences it would have on our safety in Florida communities. And as action after announced policy came down, which it became obvious very quickly that the borders were going to be thrown open. People were going to be pushed into the nation. We saw historic numbers pushed into the nation. Some say 11 million, some say 20 million. Take 11 million. That's still more than the population of 42 of our states. Most of those people were barely vetted. So what we're seeing around the nation in terms of crime and chaos, this was something that if you are in law enforcement or were working on these immigration matters early, you could have predicted and did predict would happen. And so now that we have a new administration and President Trump is taking this seriously, it is all of our responsibility to go back and clean up this mess. Now, it's shocking to me that we have folks that were told for 4 years not to enforce the law and to allow all of these people to come in and run rampant over our states and communities. So the last administration said, don't enforce the law. And now, as the new administration is coming in and saying, that was crazy, we are going to bring back sanity and law and order, that you have people around this nation, even elected officials, going after and attacking law enforcement who is trying to enforce the law. It is absolutely insane. So, what sets Florida apart is that we ignore distractions and we stay focused on how do we remain accountable and responsible for the people who have trusted us with these responsibilities to protect their rights and protect their safety. And so what we have to do is come in and say, these are the cards we're dealt from the last administration. How do we clean up? The best way we do that, as they bring in more reinforcements in the federal system, is to better equip with resources our state and locals so that they can immediately use manpower and resources to help go after those that are not only being arrested right now that may be here illegally, but those that they were forced to push into the communities at the direction of the Biden administration that were committing crimes. And so the best way to do that is to have the federal government reimburse them for the expenses when they are doing that. Right now, they're doing it on their own dime in many instances. You talk to Sheriff Ford, he'll tell you, I'm doing this for my community because it's the right thing to do, and I'm doing it on my own dime. So not only has Florida led the way in that every single county has signed a 287G agreement with the federal government, first in the nation to do that, maybe the only nation or state in the nation to do that. We now want to make sure that they are compensated for those efforts so that they can pay their men and women that are going, working above and beyond, and many times working overtime to keep their community safe and clean up the Biden mess. That's the Florida way. That's a different approach than other states in this nation. And you better believe, just as I did when I was Attorney General, I'm going to make it easier on them and do everything in my power to help them do their jobs. That's what I'm doing in Washington. So we've announced what we call the Ripple Act to reimburse these folks for the expenses they're outlaying. And I thank them for stepping up and outlaying those expenses ahead, not even knowing if you'll be reimbursed, but doing it for your communities. We also discussed ways that we can start in a methodical, organized way, going back and finding those people that had committed harms and violated others within the communities that should not be in this nation. And I commend them for doing that, and I look forward to positive progress and announcements in the future. President Trump has a big job to do. He's enlisted a lot of good people, patriots that want to do right by this nation and Americans. And I thank them. Many came back in from the private sector. Many left their homes and their families because they want to do right by this country and by Americans. And I thank them for that. And so we in Florida want to do everything that we can to use our talents and our resources and our manpower to make what they're trying to do a reality and make them successful in those efforts. So I appreciate, again, the opportunity to be in Bay County. For us, it was a simple choice. When you first took the oath, you made a choice. It was law and order, because that's the promise we make as a free people living under a rule of law. That's the promise that is made. And when they took this oath and chose this noble profession of law enforcement, they committed to uphold law and order And I commend them for that. Today's announcement and today's support for this bill is no different. That is also Florida's choice. Some states make the choice of chaos and crime. Florida makes the choice of law and order, and it will always be the Florida way. And with that, I would like to bring up Gary Howes, the current Colonel of Florida Highway Patrol.
Thank you, Senator Moody. Senator Moody was my boss for several years when I worked for the Florida Attorney General's office. I asked to work for her. I was inspired by her genuine selflessness, her tireless efforts to make Florida safer for everyone. Her priorities were and remain pretty consistent. They're common sense, public expectations. They're keeping Florida safe. They are giving law enforcement the tools and the resources that they need to do their jobs. And it's defending the rule of law, as the senator just said. When former President Biden, in effect, opened our southwest border, we felt and we still feel those impacts in Florida. The criminal influx resulting from illegal immigration was and does drain law enforcement and public safety resources every day, both along our roadways and in our communities. I watched Ashley Moody challenge that former administration in court and win consistently. She's prosecuted Mexican drug cartels, fought the deadly fentanyl crisis, and put human traffickers behind bars. It's about public safety and serving good Floridians and Americans also. Those Americans put their trust in their leaders, like Senator Moody, that they're going to work on their behalf, and these sheriffs standing with me, that they're going to work on their behalf in their interests and not the interests of criminals. Florida is not a sanctuary state. As a matter of fact, the only sanctuaries we have in Florida are to protect animals, not criminals. Senator Moody is a brilliant attorney. She's a passionate patriot and a devoted wife of a dedicated law enforcement officer who himself has faced down illegal criminal aliens and put handcuffs on them. She's proactive and always forward thinking, which is why when she asked me to join her in support of the Ripple Act, I had no hesitation to do that. This federal legislation will enhance law enforcement's ability to assist our federal partners in identifying, detaining, and arresting criminal illegal aliens. This will serve as a resource multiplier for our federal partners. The Ripple Act will also keep Florida and America moving forward in the right direction. Florida is already leading the nation, assisting our federal partners to reverse the damage caused in the past 4 years. And I'm proud of the important role that your Florida state troopers have played in that. With leadership and support of our great governor, Ron DeSantis, and Senator Ashley Moody, your Florida troopers have led the way with nearly 1,400 of us being 287G credentialed by ICE. In recent months, your Florida troopers have made over 1,600 arrests of criminal illegal aliens, many affiliated with transnational criminal organizations and gangs. These criminals are not here to miraculously change their way of life and all of a sudden be productive Florida citizens. Your Florida state troopers will continue to patrol our roadways, keeping our residents and our visitors as safe as possible. That's our direction from Governor DeSantis. That's our direction from President Trump. And that's the public expectation to those we serve. And we will continue to do just that. The Ripple Act will help us do just that. I want to thank my former boss and Florida's newest senator for championing this bold legislation in Washington, D.C. So thank you, Senator Moody.
All right. Well, we will be happy to take any questions you might have.